The referendum has dominated broadcast news output over the first half of this year, but it's also been a year full of the deaths of celebrities, the BBC's coverage of which has often proved controversial. Last Saturday morning, we woke up to learn of the death of a man considered by many, including himself, to have been the greatest.
One of the greatest personalities in world sport, the boxer Muhammad Ali, has died.
I'm the champion. I'm the real champion. There'll never be one like me.
Apart from news headlines, the weather and around 40 minutes of other material, all of the 4-hour programme that followed was dedicated to Muhammad Ali, with segments and programmes such as our own Newswatch dropped.
This is BBC News, I'm Gavin Esler.
The news channel continued in a similar vein throughout the day, and the whole of BBC One's Tea Time Bulletin was devoted to the boxer, with a special tribute programme replacing a scheduled drama later that evening on the same channel. Viewers didn't pull their punches in their responses. Teresa Telfer was absolutely incensed with BBC Breakfast, where I have just listened to only one item of news in the last hour. Shame on you, BBC. Joe Knight was disgusted at the BBC for the obsequious blanket coverage. Rosemary Smith described it as a virtual news blackout. Rory Darling wrote, "The fact that there has been the death of a famous person is news. The obituaries are not news, but historical documentaries." And Debbie Peters spotted that 14 hours later, the BBC was calling it breaking news. FYI, breaking news is something that has just happened. Well, two more viewers who contacted us this week, Grace Dalton and John McLean, join me now. And in the BBC's corner is Deputy News Editor Toby Castle. Let's start with you, John. What was your concern about all this Muhammad Ali coverage?
I woke up, as you said, to the news that Muhammad Ali had passed away. I had tweets to my phone twice during the day and my iPad. It was on the lunchtime news. As you rightly say, come to the 6 o'clock news. It was a single issue news bulletin. By that time, it wasn't news in that sense. And I'd always prided the BBC on in-depth but breadth of coverage of all news, not just a single item.
Did you also have an issue about the relevance of Muhammad Ali to some viewers?
Well, I'm of the same era as he is, sadly, but I then reflected and thought, well, my children who are in their 30s would not have had any resonance at all to that particular item. In fact, they were probably one or two of them were saying, sorry, who is he? And that meant there was a disenfranchisement of a lot of the people who you'd want to watch the news.
Grace, what about for you? You are younger. I don't know if it was the fact that Muhammad Ali may not have played a part in your growing up.
I'm 24. I was well aware who he was, and I was intrigued to hear the news headline. But it was frustrating that there was so much coverage given to it. I had the BBC News channel on for a large part of Saturday, and I noticed that lots of programmes that are normally on were moved out of the way, like Click, which I quite enjoy, had been moved to replay the same coverage over and over again of Muhammad Ali.
There's a really interesting point at the heart of that, isn't there, Toby, which is it felt like a news blackout. You got no other news for hours, including a bulletin that was 14 hours after the news had broken that Muhammad Ali had died.
I would reject that it was a news blackout. I totally accept that the Tea Time Bulletin was devoted to Muhammad Ali, and I have no regrets.
14 hours later?
Well, not 14 hours later. It was the Tea Time Bulletin of that day. It was, I would say, one of the most significant stories of the week. It was definitely the most significant story of Saturday, and the BBC, you know, I personally believe has a responsibility to provide depth and context to stories. And I felt that, and talking to John's point specifically about audiences that might not be aware of the significance as not just the the sporting figure that Muhammad Ali was, but arguably his influence beyond that culturally. And I felt that those items on that bulletin provided that context for the audience.
What do you feel about Toby's justification?
I appreciate the need, and I think it's absolutely right, to give depth to the history around Muhammad Ali, both as a boxer and an activist. But I think you'd scheduled a programme at 8:30 in the evening, which did exactly that. And I think by that time the news item was established, so that it should have been a news item, not the entire news bulletin, at the expense of everything else that was going on in the world.
Can I just let Grace respond too, and then let's answer those. Grace, what do you think?
Yeah, well, as I've highlighted, I think it's concerning how generally the media has increasingly focused on celebrities. We're having a lot of celebrity deaths this year because the way that the media changed in the last century means that there are now more famous people dying than there had been a couple of decades ago.
It's kind of the rock and roll demographic of
yes.
people. Yes.
And I don't think it's healthy for the British public to get so emotional about people we've not met. I mean, no disrespect to them, but I don't think it's good that we would obsess quite so much about specific individuals, and I think that it's better for the news to give information that can inspire us to do useful things or give us information we need.
I want to move on with those points that Grace and Judd have made, particularly the idea that it's not the BBC's job to kind of be part of the collective mourning and fill hours of airtime. You could give the information, you could put a lot of the obituaries online and direct people there, but keep the news bulletins for news.
Well, I would just, specifically, we're talking about Muhammad Ali here, and I would say that I think is more than just a celebrity death. It's a significant individual that he went beyond sport.
But
yes, he was voted as...
Toby. We're talking about more than 3 hours out of a 4-hour breakfast programme being devoted to just his death.
I just wanted to pick up, so the evening schedule, the BBC, the network, decided to put their tribute in prime time, which I think was the right decision to make. We followed that prime time tribute programme with the late news bulletin. And if you watch that bulletin, John Sopel, our North American editor, led that bulletin with on-the-day reporting about specifically on what had happened that day, the reaction to the announcement of his death that broke in the early hours of the morning UK time. And we were able to therefore reflect what happened through the day in a packaged news programme.
Sure, but just that specific point, you have all these online resources. It's one thing, if you want to clear prime time to show a documentary, shouldn't the news channel then be moving on? Why is everyone doing all the same coverage on the one story?
I can't speak but for the decision of the network to put the tribute on prime time. I can speak towards what we made decisions that day for the news bulletins. And I believe that we gave comprehensive context analysis for our audience across what was a very significant news story that day.
Well, Toby absolutely stands by the coverage. Both your thoughts, Grace first?
Why have all this coverage dedicated to one person when telling us about it isn't going to change anything or help anyone?
John?
I still maintain that maybe I'm unique, but I watch the BBC because of its breadth of coverage as well as the depth of analysis that accompanies that. And I did feel on Saturday that breadth disappeared and perspective was lost.
John McLean, Grace Dalton and Toby Castle, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Finally, we've heard the observation that Muhammad Ali's death was described as breaking news many hours after it had actually happened. It's an example of a phenomenon Andrew Stevenson had already spotted, and he rang us with a question and a suggestion.
For how long can a story be considered to be breaking? BBC News 24 sometimes has stories that carry on breaking for hours. Surely there's got to be a limit to this. Perhaps there could be other stages, for instance, impending or just pending, breaking, developing, and even maybe old hat.
Do remember, if Newswatch for any reason isn't shown in its normal slots of 9:30 on Friday evenings on the news channel or 7:45 on Saturday mornings on BBC One, you should be able to catch up with us on the BBC iPlayer.